Depending on who you ask, video game adaptations are either in the middle of their heyday or their downfall. But I do think producers will continue to see the storytelling potential contained in them. Here are a few games I think could yield good results, along with some cast and crew suggestions. Keep in mind, I'm working under the assumption that each of these films would have good writing teams attached to them. Shout out to these folks for letting me use their footage. That's really cool of them, and they didn't have to do it, but they did, so that's awesome. Let's get the most obvious entry out of the way first, Red Dead Redemption 2. This is one of the most cinematic games you'll ever see, and it's a testament to how seriously Rockstar has taken its storytelling. This story of sin, penitence, and redemption set against the backdrop of a dying Wild West is just ripe for cinematic drama. And I think one of the only directors up for the task of adapting it successfully for the big screen is Denis Villeneuve. What makes me think he could do it? Arrival, Sicario, Dune, and Blade Runner 2049. The man can do epic, and he can do it without losing sight of emotion or the human toll of the story. Arthur Morgan's story is powerful, and it has to hit hard, both literally and emotionally. He has to feel real and break our hearts. Villeneuve could keep all the right plates spinning. My dream cast? For Arthur Morgan, Josh Hartnett. I think he's always been a really great actor. He could make Arthur feel like somebody you know. For Dutch van der Linde, I'd say Matthew McConaughey. Dutch has to ooze charisma and enough of it to mask his early signs of madness. While we're at it, I think McConaughey could easily capture both the charisma and the madness. For John Marston, Alden Ehrenreich. For cinematography, I would enlist the one and only Roger Deakins to shoot it if he could. I think he's the best in the business. If done right, this could be the first video game movie to win a Best Picture Oscar. Alright, let's dig a little deeper into the game canon. BioWare used to be the king of narrative storytelling with the likes of Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age, but I would not adapt any of those. I would put up one of their criminally underrated stories, 2005's Jade Empire. An ancient fantasy epic inspired by elements of Chinese mythology, Jade Empire takes the best of classic BioWare's formula and melds it with a martial arts fantasy. It's got an evil empire, a band of misfit companions, romance, royalty, betrayal, mystery, horror, action, choice, destiny, all that in a bag of chips. What director could juggle all that while making each member of the ensemble cast feel unique and interesting while keeping the fun up and not losing sight of the stakes? I don't think any one director could do it, but two could. I'm talking about the Russo brothers. Obviously, you know why they would give me confidence. Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, but also don't overlook the Gray Man. These guys know how to make characters you want to see more of, both good and bad, and they know how to make the kind of movies that popcorn was made for. At the same time, their films are not just mindless noise, and that's quite a balancing act. For the main character, or the spirit monk, Jessica Henwick. After all, she's already worked with the Russos on Gray Man, and even with her impressive filmography, I still don't think she's been given her dues. For Dawn Star, I would say Kelly Marie Tran. And for Sagacious Zhu, I would say Simu Liu. If pulled off successfully, this movie could kickstart a new franchise that would give anything from Disney a run for its money. And maybe broaden our imaginations a little bit. Shifting gears, there's plenty of room for the mid-budget horror film. Enter Resident Evil Biohazard. But hasn't Resident Evil already been adapted for the big screen again and again and again, and the small screen while we're at it, you might ask? Technically, yes, but has it really? I mean, really? I am a Resi fan, and I'm still waiting for the truly great film adaptation that brings out the same spirit as the source material. Rather than retread the original games, I think we could start with Biohazard, which itself was something of a soft reboot for the games. Personally, I think the games are at their best when they're contained, not bloated with boulder-punching stuff. The film could bring things back to basics. To do that, I would enlist Fede Alvarez for the director's chair. I was completely taken by Alien Romulus, which was an entry in another franchise that's near and dear to my heart. What other films recommend him for the job? I'd say Evil Dead and Don't Breathe. Horror is well within his wheelhouse, almost old a hat for him at this point, but Romulus was so fun, I think Alvarez could easily make the Resi 7 film feel just as fresh and awesome. My dream cast? For Ethan Winters, it might sound crazy, but Donald Glover. My gut just tells me he would do horror thrillers really well, and I think he could inject enough levity to seem human, but not so much that it undercuts the scares. For Mia Winters, I would say Victoria Pedretti. Mia's a tough one because you need someone who can believably be a scared victim as well as a frightening killer, and Pedretti definitely has that range. If done right, Resident Evil would become a household movie name in the same vein as Alien or Evil Dead, and make horror movies really, really cool again. Now, I bet you'll never guess my next entry. You may think I'm grasping at straws here, but hear me out. Star Fox 64. Let's make a Top Gun Maverick for the whole family. Well, maybe most of the family. It may be a 64-bit game from before the narrative video game renaissance, but there is a remarkable amount of story and lore here that was not present in the Super Nintendo entry. This game has a son following in his father's footsteps, living up to his legacy, while avenging him at the same time. It has a group of mercenaries with distinct personalities that play well off of and against each other. It has dogfights, huge aerial battles, giant monsters, colorful bad guys. It even has a couple things that'll keep the youngest kids up at night for a few days. What's not to love? I think Star Fox 64 is ripe for a clean, tight, 90-minute movie that has plenty of soaring action and characters who learn to work together, and a heartfelt farewell between a father and son with plenty of flashbacks that show what sort of person James McCloud was. To bring this movie to life, I'd bring Brad Bird on to direct. He's a legend in animation and knows how to balance adventure with heart. To recommend him, just look at The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. For Fox McCloud, Jack Quaid. I think he could easily balance the swagger with the sincerity. Now, his father, James McCloud, was a little tougher. I couldn't think of anyone that fit perfectly. Then it hit me, and the answer felt glaringly obvious. Dennis Quaid. If pulled off, this Star Fox movie would dazzle, charm, and pull out a few tears. Seriously, I almost want to give this pitch its own video. Another good war movie, this time for older audiences, would be Halo, specifically Halo Reach. Frankly, I think the main series is unfilmable at this point. You would need a filmmaker to come around and pull a rabbit out of their hat like Peter Jackson did with The Lord of the Rings. Reach, however, is reasonably self-contained, poignant all on its own, and tells a very focused story detailing just how hellish war is. Who could helm this film? Ultimately, I would give it to Alex Garland. You may know him from such films as Civil War, Warfare, and Ex Machina. For Noble Six, Michael B. Jordan. For Carter, Chris Pine. And for Kat, Eva Green. If pulled off, this would obviously kick the Halo franchise back into gear, and it could make room for further creative projects in film, TV, and games that went beyond John 117. Lastly, we come to Tomb Raider Legend. Tomb Raider's already been adapted for the big screen 3 times by my count, but I don't think we've hit it quite yet. If you've watched my video on Lara Croft essentially being a female James Bond, you know what I'd like to see in my ideal adventure of hers. Legend specifically would make a good adaptation for my money because I think it has all the right ingredients and plenty of narrative runway for, say, an Underworld adaptation afterward. It touches on Lara's roots without being an origin story, and it's got larger-than-life spectacle. It's got enough supernatural stuff to ignite the imagination, but not so much that you cannot suspend disbelief. Who do I think should direct it? Rian Johnson. I like The Last Jedi. In fact, I really like it. But he's also responsible for Looper, Knives Out, and Poker Face. I think he's an incredibly intelligent filmmaker and knows how to make things that are intriguing and beautiful. Like, literally beautiful. He's got a really good eye. Typically, franchise films run the risk of feeling flat, like they're just being churned out, but Rian Johnson does not do churned out, and his Tomb Raider legend would feel special and smart and cool. I'll admit this one is a bit of a cheat because I'm going to put up two options. Frankly, this was a tough one. I bounced back and forth between a few different actresses who would be stellar in the role, including Daisy Ridley and Lily James. In fact, I've re-recorded the segment a couple of times. Ultimately, though, I settled on two people, Daphne Keane and Jessica Henwick, who is the only actor to make a reappearance on this list. Either one, I think, would be awesome and totally define the character. If pulled off successfully, we would get a film full of adventure and excitement, but could also be dissected by film students. We would get a new classic. And that's it. Honorable mention for Claire Obscura Expedition 33 though. I can't include it in this list in good conscience because I haven't finished it yet, but so far it is a masterpiece in my book and would be amazing on the big screen. What do you think of this list? Anything you would tweak? Anything you would just replace? What other games are ripe for the right filmmaker to come around? Let me know. If you're waiting for a continuation of my chronological journey through the MCU, don't worry. I'm planning a follow-up for that next. Don't forget to grab a like on your way out and subscribe if you have not already. I'd love to see you again. For now, stay tough and stop by again sometime.